Hey couples, it's Brian and Tracy, and today on the channel we're going to do a conversation that's going to be great. It'll strengthen your marriage, but it's going to sound and feel a little bit like you're back in school because we're going to talk about something called Ethos, Pathos, and Logos. This was an idea that dates all the way back to that guy on the screen, Aristotle, and here's what he had to say about it. He said, of the modes of persuasion furnished by the spoken word, there are three kinds. And again, we want to apply this to our marriages, and in particular to fighting in marriage. Aristotle says that you need to remember that the first kind of persuasion depends on the character of the speaker. The second depends on putting the audience or your spouse into a certain frame of mind. And the third depends on the proof provided by the words of the speech or the argument itself. So we can boil all of this down to three Greek words: ethos, pathos, and logos. Ethos is the credibility of the speaker. Pathos refers to the emotions of the listener. And logos refers to the logic of the message itself. Okay, so Trace, that's a lot of setup to finally get to the conversation at hand. And that is, how do we use these three things in the context of a marital conflict, right? How to fight better with ethos, pathos, and logos. And I actually want to start with logos. Logos is where you ask the question, is the message clear? What is it that I'm trying to get across to my spouse? Because a lot of times in the heat of the moment, you sort of lose your logos and now you're not sure what you're even fighting about in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just part of the basic healthy building blocks of good conflict resolution, is that when you have emotions and you're upset, you're hurt, you're disappointed, that when you come to your spouse to have that conversation, you've thought it through. You know what you want to say. That's going to make the conversation go much better if you're clear and not just over emotional and just kind of throwing a bunch of stuff against the wall and your spouse is like, I don't even know where to start with you. I don't really understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, and the truth is, a lot of us, maybe might be true a lot of times for the husbands in the marriage, they come to the argument and all they're thinking about is logos. And maybe that's part of the problem, is you're only thinking about the message and you're saying, why can't you understand what I'm saying? And maybe the reason is because you don't have the next thing, which is ethos. And that speaks to the credibility of the speaker. The question you're asking there is, are you believable? Another way to say this is, have you earned enough trust in your marriage that you can actually start doing conflict well?
Yeah, so the ethos part is that hopefully in your marriage, you need to have established a trusting enough relationship that when you have a concern or a hurt, that you can come to a conversation with your spouse, and it's not about being critical or mean or tearing them down, that you come with your thoughts in order, you've got your logos, and now you're coming saying, I love you and I want our marriage to be the best it can be. So now here I need to present this information to you that I recognize might be a little emotionally charged, but hopefully your spouse knows that you're coming to it because you want your marriage to be better.
Yeah, and you've earned the right. You've earned the right to fight, right? If that's why in our marriage basics we talked about that trust is earned, and we talked about that before we talked about fighting right, because if you don't earn trust, then it's hard to really do conflict, whether at work or at home or anywhere. If you don't trust each other, you can't do conflict. So some marriages out there might need to grow in ethos. And then, of course, this last one might be the most important one, especially for many of you husbands out there, and it's the pathos. And the question that you're trying to do is, you're saying, are they motivated to act? Am I able to communicate this in a way where I'm considering it from the vantage point of the other person? I'm not just thinking about my point of view and trying to, cram my logos down their throat, my message down their throat. I'm not getting in my box like we've talked about in past videos, but I'm really thinking about it from their perspective as well, so that I can talk about it in a way that is sort of reaching out an olive branch.
Yeah, I mean, the pathos part I do think is the most important. It's the EQ stuff, right? It's that you're thinking like, okay, how do I present this message considering that my spouse also has thoughts and emotions? And are they having a good day? Is this a good time to bring up this conversation, that you're just kind of aware of how your spouse is going to receive the message?
Yeah, so couples, consider these three things the next time you're engaging in a conflict. Logos, ethos, and pathos. Maybe even have a conversation about where you need to grow in this so that your marriage can get better and you can learn as a couple to fight right.